Today we're going to be talking about Venus's retrograde transit in its own sign of Taurus. I'm Ramdas Sinclair, and I want to thank you for joining me in the video today. I hope you'll click like and subscribe so that we can stay in touch. So today we're going to talk about Venus's retrograde in Taurus. So the first thing I want to clarify is, what is a retrograde? Well, there's two parts to a retrograde. Astronomically, a retrograde is when, as you watch a planet through the night sky, you'll start to notice that it appears to start to move backwards. Of course, the planet's not actually moving backwards, that's just how we view it, and this is due to the elliptical nature of the planetary orbits. So it just appears as if it's going backwards, when in fact it's continuing to go forwards. Astrologically, retrograde planets have a deep impact on the chart. When a planet is actually stationing, it's that point where it's standing still between forward movement and backwards movement. And then again, once it's stopped moving backwards and starting to move forward, that's called the station. So when the planet is in those two positions in the sky and it appears to stand still, it can be the most influential planet in the chart at that time. Because it's standing still, its energy really becomes focused on that particular area of the zodiac, which impacts our chart. I also want to stress that retrograde planets affect the whole world. However, unless you have a planet seated right in the degrees of the retrograde, it's likely to be more a secondary influence in your life. If you do have planets right in the degrees of which the planet is retrograding, then it's more likely to manifest in your particular chart. And there'll be three phases to this manifestation. There will be the point where he crosses over that planet for the first time, then he'll stop. He'll back up over the planet a second time, he'll stop again, and then he'll move forward and he will pass that planet a third time. So anytime a planet in your chart is transited 3 times by another planet, you can expect that change and growth will be coming in that area of your life. Let's look at a graph of this pattern, and this is for the current transit in Taurus. So on the left-hand side, you'll see all the degrees of Taurus from 0 to 30. And then on the bottom axis, you see the weeks throughout the entire transit. So starting on April 10th, Venus reached 11 degrees of Taurus. And this is where, if you look over, the second station will be at 11 degrees of Taurus. So he starts on April 10th and he moves forward up until May 13th, where he stations at 27 degrees of Taurus. And you'll see the exact retrograde day, he turns retrograde on the 13th of May. But a couple days before and a couple days after, he's slowed down to such a degree that he doesn't move except for a few minutes within the degree. So we really look at the station from May 11th until May 15th, with the actual retrograde moment on May 13th. Then you'll see he progresses backwards through June, and on June 23rd, he begins to station back at 11 degrees of Taurus. And so the station period is from June 23rd until June 27th, and the midpoint, the actual day that he turns and starts to move direct, is June 25th. And then he moves forward, and on July 29th, he finally reaches, again, 27 degrees of Taurus. So as we look at this graphic, I think you can see that he'll go over a section of the sign the first time till the 13th, he'll back up to the 25th, and then on July 29th, he again reaches it. So on those stations, from May 11th to May 15th, and June 23rd to June 27th, this is when the energy is most intense, and this is where you can really look to get clarity as to the lessons that the planet is trying to present to you. But in doing that, I want you to reflect all the way back to April 10th and see what was happening from April to May 13th, so in that month. And then this gives us the first view of the retrograde. So this is the pre-retrograde phase where we start to see things that are just highlighted. And this is often, I think of, is actually the way we feel about this situation, or how we normally handle it. Then the planet will retrograde over those same degrees. And this is where we almost see it from the other person's angle, or we see the hidden aspects of the issues that we may not have been aware of before. So this is why it's important, and we always study retrogrades closely, because in your life you have to look and see what's coming up, what's challenging your views, or what new information are you gaining during this retrograde cycle. And then from June 25th forward, you may find that with this new information or this new point of view, you may take a different tactic in handling these situations. This is a basic formula for all of the retrogrades. It's to study and look at what they're bringing to you in their chart, in your chart, like what lessons are coming up. So with this in mind, let's look a little closer at Taurus. At first of all, the planet Venus, what's its nature, and then how is it going to behave in Taurus. So Venus has a retrograde cycle every year, and during this retrograde cycle, like all planets, I tend to use two keywords. Venus is looking to rebalance the energy in that area of the chart or that sign where it's retrograding. And secondly, it's really emphasizing this. It brings it to our attention by going over the point in the sign 3 times. So those are two key things to keep in mind. This year, however, Venus's retrograde has 2 special aspects. First of all, it's all within the sign of Taurus, which it owns. So normally Venus is only in a sign for about a month on average. But this year, because of this retrograde cycle, Venus will be in Taurus, its own sign, for 4 months. So this brings a really kind of a deep reworking, a deep discovery phase about the sign of Taurus. So this is why it's a great opportunity to understand the lessons of Taurus in your chart and in your life. Also, I want to explain a little bit about Taurus and Venus. So Venus rules the sign of Taurus. And what this means is that the energy of the planet Venus is closely aligned and is complementary to the energy in the sign of Taurus. So this way, it's almost like there's little static in the communication. Venus is going to present its point of view quite clearly, and it's going to be amplified by the sign of Taurus. So this is unusual. Venus will retrograde in all the different signs depending on how it's transiting in a particular year. Venus itself is a natural benefic. And what that means is that he tends to satisfy our desires. And that's great. And everyone loves Venus because he gives us what we want. The problem is, the shadow with Venus is that you have to remember that once you get something, you have it. And then it starts to get a little boring, and it really hasn't brought you the happiness. So it lights another cycle of desire, and you start thinking, well, maybe something else will help. So this is the trap of Venus, is that it keeps us more outwardly focused, and we're really focused on obtaining new things, gaining new things. So we get something, we enjoy it, and then it loses its luster, and we move on to something else. So this is the cycle of Venus, and this is why we say Venus can give you anything except happiness. So it's great because we all need material things. We need clothes and houses and food and, friends and entertainment and luxury and joy. All of that is good. But we have to realize the limit, that ultimately it's not going to help us through the whole thing, and that we need to be looking for something else. So during this retrograde cycle, we are likely to become more aware of specific wants and needs that arise during the pre-retrograde cycle. And then we think about, and we kind of do a cost-benefit analysis in the retrograde cycle. And then we reassess the true value and the true qualities that they bring to our life. And so we can make a decision to maybe to continue to pursue those ideas, or we may let them go, or we may revise them. And that's the big lesson of a Venus retrograde. But the other aspect about Taurus is that it's a fixed sign. And what this means is when Venus is retrograde in a fixed sign, the changes that we're looking at may be very deep within us. They may be very fundamental. Taurus is a sign of early childhood. So you may be rethinking patterns that you've held for most of your life. And that can be a little troubling for sometimes, or it may be relief. You may find something you've been thinking about for a long time is suddenly going to come to pass. The other thing about Taurus is that it's an earth sign. And so while the earth signs are really about getting us the necessities of life, so all the stuff that we need to live is contained in the earth sign. And while Venus adds that aspect of desire to it, there's also the practicalities. Taurus is a very practical sign. And so this is going to have us rethinking or exploring new ways, to get our needs met, and in a practical way. Saturn is also retrograding in an earth sign, in the sign of Capricorn. And this is why I think we're facing really large issues about supply chain, financial processes, how we go about conducting commerce, inequities and income. Even we're thinking about food instability, which is something that in the United States, it was never a highlight. It's always existed, but it's never been brought to light. And now we're seeing it in a much larger percent of the population. Also, Capricorn, where Saturn is our fundamental sign of work and exchange. And Taurus also represents how we gain money, and it has to do with the material aspects. So with these two planets retrograding very close together, it's a double emphasis on all of these financial basic ways we live our life. The first thing we have to do is line up how is our income? How are we going to get money so that we can get the necessities of life? These things are all going to be revisited, and there will be some new ideas emerging that may take us into a better and more equitable way of distributing the opportunity throughout more people. So the major themes I'm seeing in Venus's transit of Taurus is that Taurus is the fixed sign of the bull. And one can become fixed on trying to do things in the same old way. When the current situation calls for flexibility and new behaviors, that can be problematic. It can bring out a stubbornness and a resistance to change. So that is something to be on the lookout for. If you feel that emerging in you, it means it's time to look at that and say, do I really need to hold firm to this, or could there be a different way that might be better for everyone? Secondly, Taurus has the capacity for hard work. Bulls are very strong, and Taurians like to dig in, and once they get a project going, they will work it all the way through the end. So we have to be careful of that, because in this time of so much pressure and so much stress, we have to really try to maintain a work-life balance. Remember, Venus is also about relaxation and entertainment. And so when he's direct in the sign, they help to counterbalance each other. But when Venus is retrograde, we may find ourselves working all the time without taking time to recover and to feel better about, just to relax. So we need to take time to relax and recover so that we can continue to do good, high quality work. Taurus is also the natural sign of the mouth. And what that means to me is that we have to be very careful of what we consume. Not only our food, in stressful times we tend to turn to comfort food and all that, but also what we're consuming in social media. Like, are we reaching out to people? Are we fasting on social media and not connecting to people when we need the support? And finally, we have to look at what we consume from the news and the news media. There's only one topic on the news right now, which is COVID-19. And they're reporting every single micro development, which can be good, but that can also be stressful because things are changing so quickly. A lot of us don't know what to do. So this is why it's time to stay informed, but don't watch 6 hours of news a day. It'll just be too confusing, and it will just burn you out when you don't need to. So that major themes of this retrograde, that of work-life balance, trying to remain flexible, which will help your work-life balance, and being conscious of what we consume is going to manifest differently in different areas of life for people during this retrograde based on where your lagna is placed, the ascendant sign, and where your moon is placed. So now I'd kind of like to go through and just share with you a few ideas that may help you be on the lookout. So if you know where your lagna is and your moon is, you can just concentrate on those signs. So for Aries, finance and work-life balance will be an area of stress, which will lead to growth eventually. For Taurus, caring for your health and maintaining regular moderated exercise routine will be key to maintaining your balance during the retrograde cycle. It will also give you new insights into many areas of life. Since it's in your ascendant, then you will have great insights. It can be actually a time for great growth and support. Geminis need to maintain a balanced sleep pattern in order to be alert and ready to process all the new ways of being. Your intellectual capacity will help you out for that, but it can't work well if you're exhausted, so make sure you have a good sleep schedule. Cancer, you may feel frustrated by a lack of recognition or closure on different projects. Stay focused on exploring the costs and benefits of the major areas of life. Again, let your natural Cancerian intuition guide you on this, and recognize that things are going to be a little bumpy for a while. Leo, changes in how you approach your career are likely to arise. Using a pros and cons lens can help you sort out the opportunities that are coming and the challenges that you're facing, and you'll be able to move forward with your career in a more positive way. Cultivate an open and listening mindset. It's also a fixed sign, so it can lead you into not being open to the new changes and really evaluating them fairly. For Virgo, you can gain insight and deeper understanding by reflecting on the relationship with your father and with father figures in your life. Libra, be aware of the coping mechanisms that you're engaging. You will find old negative habits resurfacing. Actively examine your spending habits and find ways to economize. Scorpios need to support your partners, your colleagues, and be sure to give yourself quiet time to process all the information that you just collect psychically in your natural state. Sagittarius, actively cultivate a stance of not knowing. Be gentle with yourself and those near you. One of the good things to do is moderate daily exercise, because this will help clear your mind and keep a balance of mind-body experience. Also, while I was writing this script, I had a client call in, and a legal issue that she's involved with started to move forward suddenly. So Sagittarius is the sign of law, and so you can expect that this retrograde in Venus will help to move things along in those areas. So evaluate these carefully and try not to make any decisions on those matters during the stationing periods that we talked about earlier. Capricorn, focus your creative efforts on sharing hope and calm in the world. Keep the energy flowing by adopting a daily routine and meeting small goals on a daily basis to avoid feeling paralyzed. For Aquarius, issues related to your mother or your role as a mother may arise. There's also a tendency to overindulge in conspiracy theories, which may be a way of coping with your concerns for yourself and your near and dear ones. Redirect this energy into helping others rather than blaming others, and you will feel at peace. A lot of times, conspiracy theories are about us trying to feel in control and trying to negate feelings of vulnerability. So this is something to look at with yourself if suddenly you start to think, a lot about any particular theory. They're so prevalent now that I thought I should really speak about that, because ultimately they don't really help you. They make you feel worse and more afraid. Pisces will benefit from maintaining connections with others to share their insights and emotions. Your natural ability to connect with the subtle energies may help you to articulate larger themes that are emerging in the world. Be sure and maintain a positive exchange with siblings and close friends. Pisces have a great gift of intuition, and they can help to sort through all of this mess that we're facing now of misinformation and new and emerging information. So that is your gift. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it's helpful. I hope you have a good Venus transit with using these basic principles of watching what's coming up in your life, seeing if that doesn't represent Venus, and then being able to move forward in a productive, healthier way. Namaste.